Some of you may know, some of you may not know, going back to the mid-19th century, the name William Booth, sometimes referred to as General William Booth, even though he was not a military man. William Booth was the founder of the Salvation Army. He started this in England. Salvation Army didn't start in America. America may be the biggest place for it, but it didn't start here. I bring up, and I'll go ahead and call him General Booth. He called himself General Booth, I guess. I bring him up because of his first visit to North America. He came over tens of thousands of Salvation Army officers and members gathered to hear him speak. Huge auditorium packed to the rafters. I mean, just incredible. The head of the Salvation Army in the United States, which is where the auditorium was, nothing against our Canadian Salvation Army, they were there too. But the head of the Salvation Army in the United States got up, gave General Booth a rather long and glowing introduction. General Booth got up out of his chair. The place went silent. He walked up to the lectern. He said one word, others. Turned around, went and sat down. That was what William Booth built the Salvation Army around, was others. It was caring about not just the souls, but the welfare of others. We had plenty of churches caring about souls and worrying about souls. But as William Booth himself said, what good is it, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the quote exactly, but what good is it to preach the gospel to men whose whole existence is focused on their survival? You got to do something about the practical side too. Now, I'm not saying this to be religious, okay, or to, I've mentioned it before. Yes, I'm an ordained minister. In the little group that ordained me, I am ordained for the offices of evangelist and pastor. But I'm not saying this out of my Christian conviction. I'm saying this out of my human conviction. Okay? A human being, generally speaking, has a certain amount of empathy built in. We see people hurting, we want to do something about it. Now, maybe you can't do anything about it in yourself. Maybe you're not doing all that great on your own. And nobody is asking you, well, nobody that knows what they're talking about. Let me put it that way, because there are, yes, televangelists is what they're known as, generally, who, give sacrificially, give out of your need. No. You give what you can give. But that's the thing. It doesn't have to be money. And I remember years ago, because I'm past retirement age at least, and I was in high school at the time, so it's been a while. We had a pretty major snowstorm hit my hometown, which is in the extreme southwest corner of Kansas. There's not, snow usually isn't a real big deal there. You get maybe an inch here and there, at the most. But we got hit by one, oh brother. It was deep. Now, we had a bunch of teenagers. Most of us, if we were working at all, were making minimum wage. Yes, our parents fed us. Yes, our parents housed us. Yes, our parents clothed us. Yes, our parents kept insurance on our cars. Most of us, our parents bought gas for our cars to a limit, generally a tank a week. Which was, in my car, about $6.50 at the time. But because gas prices weren't anywhere near what they are now. But we couldn't give a bunch of money, to try to help people out. But here's what we could do. If the people who could give the money, because we had elderly people in town who couldn't get to the store, and who were now running low on groceries, and the guy who owned the IGA, or the guys, I should say, there were two of them, that owned the IGA said, well, we'll deliver groceries to these people, since, they can't really get out. But then there's the question of getting up to their house. We can get there because the city has plowed the streets. So we can get there, but if their sidewalks aren't clear, how do we get the groceries to the house? Well, a bunch of us teenagers from the various churches in town got together. We got our dad's snow shovels, and we went out to shovel sidewalks for these elderly folks. Now, they still might not have felt safe trying to go to the store, even if they had the transportation to do it, and some of them didn't. But that was okay, because once we'd shoveled those walks, Ralph and Jim would bring them the groceries. And employees from the other grocery store would bring them the groceries. So there you have us giving time and labor. Last spring, as a teacher at the local high school, I spent a day with a small group of high school kids. I was kind of their supervisor, going around and doing little bits of cleanup and yard work for people who couldn't do it themselves. Some of it was gathering up downed limbs, some of it was doing a little weed eating or whatever. And we did that, the whole high school, junior high school, did that for the whole day. Well, okay, so there wasn't really enough work turned in to keep us the whole day, but it kept us most of the day. Well, okay, it kept us at least till lunchtime. Because these young kids, boy, they can get in there and do some work when they want to. And even kids who I've heard people call lazy. I had a kid on my team that was, you know, I've heard people around town say, well, he's lazy. He's never going to amount to anything. Well, I happen to know his dad. And his dad's a long way from lazy. I also happen to know that the kid looks up to his dad like he was practically God. And he wants to be like his dad. Well, he ain't gonna do that being lazy, so there you go. And on my work team, well, he was getting her done. He was blazing through. He was not showing a bit of laziness. And he was looking for stuff to do when we ran out of a job. So these kids can get it done. But that's the thing, kid or adult. We can, and this will help us enjoy life. That's what this channel's about. This channel is about enjoying your life. Well, one of the things that will help enjoy your life is to feed that empathy that's built into you, and the way you do that, a little volunteering here and there. Or do a little something nice for a neighbor. I remember there again, going back to when I was in high school, I remember we had an elderly neighbor who, she had a area where she could have a garden, but she couldn't tend a garden anymore. So, Dad had a rototiller. Dad and I took his rototiller over there, tilled up her little garden area, put a little bit of chicken wire around it to keep the rabbits out. Okay, so yeah, I sounded like Elmer Fudd. And we asked what she wanted planted, and we planted it. And we'd go over every so often and take care of any weeds that were coming up and whatnot. And when her garden was ready to come in, we went over, harvested it for her. Mom and Dad canned a bunch of the produce for her, but we also made sure she got some of it fresh so she could eat it right away and enjoy it. This is the kind of thing, feeding that empathy that's built into you, that can bring a lot of joy to your life. William Booth was right. One word will do it. Others.